1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi everyone, this is Jewish Talk coming to you live from Nassau Community College on 90.3 WHPC, also streaming on the iHeart and the iTunes app. We can be seen in the studios right now on my Facebook Live page and the Facebook of WHPC. Go there right now and join us in the fun. And of course, everybody listening, welcome, welcome. This program is later archived on Spreaker.com. So therefore, hi, in case you didn't know, this is Rabbi Pearl. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This, of course, all depends on when you're listening or watching. Well, first, I want to say, if my voice sounds a little under the weather, I'm just decompressing from the high holiday season. But here we are on this day, on the October the 27th, and it marks a rather sad day. We're talking about the Tree of Life massacre 1 year later. Nearly 1 year ago, our community suffered the most brutal anti-Semitic attack in the history of the United States, when a gunman opened fire in the Tree of Life building synagogue in Pittsburgh, taking the lives of 11 innocent people, all of whom were joined in prayer. So today, 1 year later, we'll take a moment to honor their memory. So today, October the 27th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, people from all around the world will have an opportunity to join Pittsburgh in a very public memorial service. Together we will pause and pledge to maintain our abiding sense of unity and responsibility for one another. So I'm inviting all of us, those who are watching us and those who are listening to us, to commemorate this first anniversary of the attack. And you can receive the information how to be part of this by going right now, right after the program, to www.pausewithpittsburgh.com. Again, it's a website, one word, pausewithpittsburgh.com. You'll find all the information to join in this very special memorial, including a moment of silence at 5 p.m. today, Eastern Standard Time, and in Israel, that is 11 p.m. In this moment, the question we must ask ourselves, what can we do to best honor the memory of the victims? Let me take a moment out to say hello to everybody listening to us, to Karen Dumbeck, to Dr. Kilshevsky, all the way from Vermont, Baruch Hashem, to Jean. Thank you, Harvey Kipnis. I haven't forgotten our conversation. Harvey, welcome this morning. Good morning from Georgia. Wow, from Jean Sand. Holly Feynman. And let's see now, we also have from Yehuda Ezer Klein and Zalman Stewart Wag. Good morning, Rabbi. Good morning to you, Zalman. It was a great honor to meet you and for you joining us at our great barbecue for Sukkot. So on this day, 1 year to the date, on the calendar to the massacre at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, we must ask ourselves, what can I do? What can we be doing? My thoughts, of course, are, first of all, we must have and continue this message of defiance that we've always heard throughout Jewish history, from the pogroms of Russia to the German Holocaust to the massacre to the Tree of Life Synagogue just last year, and then at the synagogue, the Chabad in Poway. And we must remember to continue to thrive, and we will continue to thrive despite these acts of hatred. These people were snuffed out just because they had the title Jew. And therefore, first and foremost, dear friends, I say we must just stay resolved to be stronger. And I also want to share with you an insight that I found fascinating. It's based on the Talmud, Tractate Shabbat, page 89a, which ponders the existential question of anti-Semitism and points to Mount Sinai, where the Jewish people were charged to become a light unto the nations. So despite never constituting more than a tiny fraction of the world's population, Jewish ideals have become the basic and the basis for civilized world. And with that, Jewish people have become a lightning rod for those opposed to these moral messages. So in simple words, dear friends, those who are anti-Semitic simply are anti the moral messages that we all should be standing for. Which brings us to an exquisite irony of Jewish history. The problem and its solutions are one and the same. Jewish values are the cause of those who are anti-Semitic. And Jewish values, those very same values, is the solution. Which means only by strengthening the moral doctrine that Judaism has brought to the world from Sinai can we hope to create a peaceful, loving, and compassionate society where no anti-Semite could reasonably exist. So let me share with you for a moment just a few of the concepts that are espoused in Torah and in Jewish tradition that seem to be quintessentially modern, yet go back to thousands of years. Here's a roundup of some ideas that we take for granted today that really are an integral part of ancient Jewish wisdom. Number one, monotheism. Judaism introduced the powerful notion that one God created and rules the universe. This was a profound break with the many idolatrous models that came before, in which an angry or capricious God was seen to govern events at random and had to be appeased, often in horrible ways, like child sacrifice. This was a revolutionary idea that ordinary people were seen to be holy and important beings. The Torah describes every human being as being created b'tselem Elokim. Every human being is created in the image of God. No matter what our circumstances or abilities, each life is holy and special. All of the elements that make up a civilized society flow from this realization. Another exciting idea that I think all of us will be proud of are weekends. Where do you think weekends came from? Well, the Torah tells us 6 days you shall work, and on the seventh day shall be the Sabbath. Do not work. There's nothing inherently logical about breaking up the long monotony of human days. The 7-day week is found nowhere in the natural world. Yet today, 4,000 years after Judaism introduced the concept of Shabbat, the concept of a 7-day week is universal. And the Jewish concept of Shabbat, of ceasing from work for 1 day out of 7, has helped develop the idea of week and set society on the path to delineating a specific work week and a periodic time for leisure. So, dear friends, I hope you're enjoying the weekend. Another thing I'd like to share that is so taken for granted, the idea of equality under law. Alone in the ancient world, the Jewish people proclaimed the dignity of every person, men, women, rich or poor. Ancient codes of justice routinely contain different laws for people of varying social statuses. Even in the present day, when human rights abuses around the world make a mockery of impartial justice, the Torah remains a beacon of light, insisting that all people, regardless of station, are to be judged the same. And let me just wrap up with one more. Animal rights. This is Kim, this is all in your honor. The movement for animal rights might seem to be very modern. Current animal welfare laws began to be proposed in the Western nations in the mid-19th century. But they've been there, part of Jewish thought, for way before that. The Torah and Talmud are full of detailed instructions on treating animals with kindness. We are forbidden from muzzling an ox during harvest or yoking a strong animal together with a weak one, because it might cause undue strain on this small animal. When we collect eggs, the Torah instructs that we first shoo away the mother bird. And guess what? The Talmud even commands us to feed our animals before we ourselves eat. So when you come home and you're starving and you're wherever, first take care of your cat or your dog, whatever it may be, before you sit down to eat. And finally, another thing which I find fascinating is where Judaism has introduced the concept of public school, education for all. Back in 64 CE, there was a famous Rabbi Yeshua. He ruled that every child aged 6 and up should attend school, whether their parents can afford to send them or not. He even mandated a maximum class size, no more than 25 children per teacher. And Jewish communities raced to put this idea into action, establishing subsidized or free schools in Jewish communities all over the world. And I saw a quote from a Chicago philanthropist called George Hanus. He said the following: It is the it is the first instance in recorded history of a people instituting universal education funded by the larger community. Many scholars believe that that rabbi's model was the inspiration for the free public education systems in the contemporary West, including here in the United States of America. So, my friends, just something to think about. And before I go on, I'd like to say hello again to Harold Kornfeld. Good morning from Florida. Man alive, this is unbelievable. Patty Fuchs, how are you doing, Patty? We're back in business. Lunch and Learn this coming Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen, 12:15. And who else do we have? I hope I didn't miss anybody out. If I miss your name out, it's because I didn't see it. And, of course, all those listening, we are very, very honored that you should be with us and joining us on Sunday morning. Let me continue now this idea that hatred of moral standards is basically the background to those who are anti-Semitic or anti-anything or anti-society. Let me just put it into the following context. This week we began, just yesterday, the reading of the first, right away from the beginning of the Torah again. And interestingly, it speaks about creation, the pristine beauty, the creation of a very graceful, peaceful world, culminating with the creation of a day of rest. But alas, the serenity was short-lived. We turn just a few pages. Oy Gewalt, do we read about all successive disasters. First of all, Adam and Eve, they taste from the fruit of the tree of knowledge. What happened then? By eating the fruit, they internalized both good and evil. Therefore, they implanted within themselves an inclination to evil, creating a constant struggle within the human heart between the godly soul and the animalistic soul. Then we read about Adam and Eve's being told of their mortality. Shoin, fatek. At the end of their lives, they're going to return to the earth. They understood that it would take death for the evil and the good within them to separate. The body and the evil inclination would return to the earth, and the soul would return heavenward to God. It doesn't stop there, my friends. We then read about the first murder in history. We read how Adam and Eve had to face a double tragedy. The murder of their son Abel, as well as coming to face with the fact that their son Cain was capable of murdering his own brother. Now the Medrash relates that Adam and Eve were weeping beside the corpse of their son Abel, unsure what to do with the body because this was the first encounter with death. And the Medrash continues that they saw a bird, an orev, a raven, and they saw this bird burying a dead bird in the ground. So Adam and Eve decided to do the same, and they buried their son Abel in the earth. Now on the surface, this Medrash explains how they found a solution to the technical question of how to dispose of the corpse. On a deeper level, the Medrash contains a very profound insight into the human condition. Adam and Eve were at loss, not only about what to do with their son's body, but they had a much deeper question. How do we respond to the absolute evil? How could they continue to live after witnessing the depravity of which humanity was capable? True, they too had sinned. They too had been condemned to a natural death. They too were not perfect. But they could never have imagined that a human being could act so brutally, that one human being could and would inflict an unnatural death upon another human being, or all this other garbage that we see around today. They could not imagine that a person could act in a way that was the polar opposite of what God had intended. So now let's apply this to this. God therefore sent a bird to teach Adam and Eve how to respond to absolute evil. You see, according to the sages, the orev is this particular bird is very cruel to its young, abandoning its offsprings at birth. Adam and Eve witnessed this same bird engaging in the truest form of kindness. Because the sages explain that to burial is referred to as a loving kindness and truth. It's called a chesed shel emes, a loving kindness of truth. Because when doing kindness with a living person, the doer can always expect a favor in return, a thank you. Not so with burial. When we are kind to the dead, we do not expect anything in return. Therefore, the kindness is absolute. The kindness is a true kindness. So Adam and Eve looked at this bird and understood. They received the wisdom on how to react. They now understood that the response to absolute evil is absolute kindness. True, evil must be stopped and contained. But the remedy to absolute depravity within humanity is absolute love and compassion. And they were comforted. They were comforted because they now understood that the profundity of evil that the human being is capable of is matched only by a response of profound kindness within the human spirit. They understood that the same human heart capable of boundless hate is likewise capable of boundless love. So today, as we mark the first anniversary of the terrible massacre in the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, we must take this message to heart. We look around the world and we see intense cruelty. We know that we must respond with intense kindness. Like Adam and Eve, we understand that this earth is a complicated place, that humanity is capable of extremes. Like Adam and Eve, we respond to negativity with a greater commitment to absolute kindness. And when we face unspeakable cruelty, we take a step towards extreme kindness, bringing us closer and closer to God's vision of a perfect world, a peaceful world, a world that experiences the tranquility of the seventh day, of course, the tranquility of Shabbat. And that's exactly how we feel when we experience Shabbat, come to synagogue, learn with each other, laugh with each other, say l'chaim together. We experience something deeper, a deeper relationship, a deeper recognition of the holiness and the gratitude we must have of being alive and having the choices of doing what is right. I found it fascinating. We discussed on Shabbat, every Shabbat morning at 9:15 we get together, Chabad of Mineola. All are welcome, men and women. And we were discussing the concept of Adam and Eve being put into a garden and asked not to eat from from one tree. There were two trees. One tree was the tree of life, which they could eat from, but the tree of knowledge, good and evil, they were told not to eat from. And as I was thinking, interestingly, when we're first educated, when we're children, we go to a kindergarten. Now, a kindergarten. Why is it called a kindergarten? As you can see, it has you could say a kind of a German kind of word. In fact, there was a German educator back in 1837. He established such a kindergarten. Now, this particular person characterized children in his school as plants and the teachers as gardeners. Therefore, he came up with the idea, Kinder in German means children, and Garten means garden. Thus, kindergarten. Surprise, dear friends! We were into this way before 1837. How do we see this? Where did Adam and Eve first begin their life? They were created. They were put into garden. They were put into the Garden of Eden. So the whole concept of humanity, beginning, is in a garden. What's the significance of a garden? A garden is a place of many trees. It's a place of many wonderful different kinds of plants, bushes, places of different animals. It's a beautiful place of serenity. And Adam and Eve were given the opportunity, la'avda l'shamra, which is the Hebrew words, to work it over, to guard it, to work it over, to weed out the weeds, to make it look beautiful. Adam and Eve were given the opportunity to create the entire world into a garden. A garden, a beautiful place. Beautiful colors. Unfortunately, they missed out. But the source of humanity in the beginnings of life was in a kindergarten. They were the kinder, God's children, in a garden. But on a deeper level, this is what we discussed on Shabbat morning. Why was it that they were given these two They had an amazing place. The whole world was there. The entire world was, in a sense, a wonderful garden. Why were they given these two trees? There were two trees are mentioned and said, this one you can eat from, this one you can't eat from. Tree of life is yours. Tree of knowledge, don't touch. Well, along comes the Baal Shem Tov, the founding Hasidic master, and he says that the word gan in Hebrew, which garden, numerically comes to 53. And at the beginning of the new year, all of us enter into the new gan, into the new study of the 53 chapters of the Torah, the parshas of the Torah. But even as we enter that cycle of study, or see ourselves as members of society in the world, which God wanted it to be a garden of many ideals and diversity, we must remember that in that garden, the garden that we approach life with as an individual or a member of society, be careful looking around and search for two trees, because there is a tree out there that's full of life. That life is connected to the Almighty, to something that transcends us, that elevates us, sees the godliness in every human being. That's the tree of life. Life of our own life, but also life of others as well. They too have a place. We all have a place in this garden. But be very careful of the tree of knowledge. What's the problem with the tree of knowledge? We all want knowledge. But if there's a knowledge that's, in a certain sense, truncated from just simply knowledge for what is for academic study, and not see the knowledge is connected to something higher in the research and the ability to look at the world and see godliness in this world, then that same tree of knowledge can be a source of terrible destruction. And I mentioned the Nazis earlier on in the Holocaust. They were people of great culture, philosophy, and based on all kinds of ideas over there. But the same knowledge could come to a conclusion that these people can live and these people cannot. That's when you have a tree of knowledge that is disconnected from the garden of life. And that is why the Torah tells us clearly that Adam and Eve, which is every one of us, every man has a spark of Adam, and every woman has a spark of Eve. And just as they entered their life in their first day on this world in a garden, we begin our life in a garden. We go to kindergarten, but in a more deeper sense, or in our homes, and where we are brought up and educated. And we have to be careful. Just as Adam and Eve looked at those two trees, we must recognize in this world we have choices. We have the choice of the tree of life, the life that is inclusive of everyone in this world. There's enough space for everybody in this world. Or we can have a life that's just filled with knowledge. We know a lot, but when it comes to action, it comes to kindness, it comes to contributing to society, they're nowhere. On the contrary, the exact opposite. Too much knowledge can make a person really self-centered, narcissistic, and can be used to the opposite of what life is all about. So that is why, my friends, how fascinating. We begin the new year on the Jewish calendar. We begin a new year when we're going into a new cycle of studying. The studying has 53 chapters, 53 portions. That is the garden of the Torah, but also in a deeper sense for all of us, reminding ourselves of how careful we must be to make the right choices. Adam and Eve, I guess they learnt the hard way. They made the wrong choice by eating from the tree of knowledge in the wrong way and internalizing evil. Well, we have the opportunity to make up, to rectify, and to elevate everything around us. So on this day, as we remember and think back on what happened a year ago in Pittsburgh, please, dear friends, why don't we reach out to someone, our neighbor next door, or in any way you can, and say good morning. And they say, hey, are you crazy? What are you saying good morning? You never talked to me in 5 years. No, he says, you know what? I heard today on the radio, I was reminded that every human being has a place in this world. Interesting, Rabbi Schneerson, the Rebbe, wrote a letter where he spoke in great detail of why is it when God made the world, he made lots of different animals individually, lots of trees, lots of birds, lots of oceans, lots of continents, lots. God's capable of making all these things. So how come when it came to Adam and Eve, we have all kinds of all kinds of hoops to go through. We read how God first made Adam and Eve, and they were joined together, and then they had to be separated. But why not just make a lot of people? Why this just man, and one woman? Why? And the Rebbe says a very fascinating idea, my friends, for all of us to remember, and I mean everybody, that there's no pecking order amongst human beings. We all come from one man and one woman. Fatik, that's the end of it. No one's better than each other. Anti-Semitism has that kind of thinking that they're somehow better. No, that's not the case. We all have a place in this world. Yes, dear friends, we must be reminded we all have our particular mission, our particular way of what we've been chosen to do in our lives. And that's how we complement each other. That's how we learn from each other, by being different. But the basic premise that all of us are created in the image of God started with one man and one woman. And then later on we developed into nations, into peoples, into different missions. The Jewish people received the mission statement of Mount Sinai. But at the end of the day, though, we all come from one man and one woman. And to appreciate that fact is something we should be thinking about on a day like this. My friends, I have a lot to say, but time is grabbing me. Just check it out. Go to pauseforpittsburgh.com. Give a look over there and join in today's worldwide special memorial service to remember the 11 Jewish people who were murdered at the Tree of Life in Pittsburgh. May we only have good news. Wishing everybody a good year, good Chodesh. Sei gesund. This is Rabbi Pearl. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again.
This show is brought to you by Disney on Ice presents Road Trip Adventure, coming to NYCB Live, home of the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum, November 21st through the 30th. Mickey, Minnie, and you embark on a ride to your favorite Disney destinations. See the world from the rooftops of London, travel to the sun-soaked Motunui, set off on a safari to the Pride Lands, and play at a larger-than-life carnival with Woody and Forky. It's a getaway packed with unexpected hijinks and up-close character interactions. More information is available online at DisneyOnIce.com.
90.3 WHPC is supported by Life's Work. Life's Work has job opportunities available for college students and recent college grads, both full and part-time. These positions are offered to accommodate your class schedule. They offer a generous compensation package, including benefits. Life's Work is a nonprofit agency that supports people with special needs, including intellectual disabilities and autism. Apply today at lifesworc.org. That's Life's Work with a C.org.
Big news. Now trending. Holy okay, maybe I'm a bit excited. But the Voice of Nassau Community College has been nominated to be the best radio station on Long Island in the Bethpage Long Island Awards. You can help us win the award by choosing to vote once a day, every day at bestoflongisland.com. Find us under Arts and Entertainment and click. Tell your friends and family that we're number one, numero uno, cream of the crop. You get the point. Thanks for voting and listening to 90.3 WHPC.
Come on, everybody. Let's sing along this groove.
Say it! Show a little. You ain't a beauty, but that's all right.
Join me, Kim Tracy, for the music of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band every Sunday at 1 p.m. on the Voice of Nassau Community College 90.3 WHPC and with the iHeartRadio and TuneIn apps.
Voice of Nassau Community College.
A 2019 Marconi Award finalist from the National Association of Broadcasters.
This is 90.3 WHPC.
WHPC HD Garden City.
Available anytime on your smart speaker.
And anywhere on iHeartRadio.
I'm looking for a record for my daughter for her birthday.